Well, congratulations on writing your first smart contract. Now we're going to set up the repo locally on our computer in the style of Git, or running on a Git style repo. Basically, we'll see what that means here in a moment. Let's pull up a terminal, okay? So at this point, just as a reminder, I'm on a Mac laptop using Sublime Text and my terminal here. So close the gap using AI or Google if you're having environmental issues, and get caught up with me here to where you have your contract that we just wrote, not saved necessarily, or part of the, not put in the project quite yet. Ooh, pardon me. And then this terminal, okay? And what we're going to do is set up a directory on our computer here. So we're going to make a directory, or mkdir. We're saying, hey, make a directory called what? Well, I'm going to call mine DePIN model. And the reason is I've already built the DePIN simulator, so I need to use a different name. Maybe you go ahead and use the same name as me, or you can pick a name of your choice. Just remember it, okay? All right, so if I come now to Sublime Text and go to Open, or whatever editor you're using, right there I can see it. Look at that. So it's made that directory. Right now nothing's in it, okay? And that matches what we've requested, right? So back to our terminal. Now I'm going to initialize the repository by saying git init, or git initialize. All right, so with that action, we've initiated a git repository. And now we're going to install the Node package manager, okay? And basically this is a Node.js project, and we're going to be using a package.json, and that is going to hold our dependencies. And so we're setting up the Node package manager, or npm, okay? And we're initializing, and we basically, there's a series of questions that are coming, and we just want to answer yes to all of them. So with that -y, that takes care of that, okay? And so what it's done is it's started in the background a package.json with things like basically the name and very basic information at the moment, okay? Okay, so now we're going to write our ts.config.json, okay? And this file is going to be used to configure the TypeScript compiler. We'll be having both .ts and .js files. And so we're just setting up the compiler. We're setting up very fundamental aspects of the project. How are we going to read what we're seeing, okay? And so what we want to do is go to our terminal, and I'm going to cd into my project now. And what that means is I'm going to choose the directory, or cd, okay? And then the title of my project, which is DePIN model. And what that's going to do in the terminal is take me to that directory, okay? So now it's like I've taken the elevator, I've gotten off, and now I'm in the environment of my project, okay? And one of the ways we can create files quickly and easily is by using the touch command. I'm going to say touch, or create for me, please, a ts.config.json, okay? Hit enter. And now we come look at our project. Check it out. There it is, sitting right there, okay? So now we're going to code this out, okay? We need to set up our compiler, setting up pathways for lots of code that's going to come, okay? So we're going to start with a nice curly bracket there, give it an enter, okay? And we're going to first, what we're really setting up here are our compiler options, colon, and then another set of curly braces, okay? So tracking the curlies is important. We've got our set here, and then this set in between here, okay? All right, so we're going to start with our target. And that is going to be ES 2020, okay? And there's more to come, so we're telling that the code that by putting the comma, okay? Comma means, hey, there's more to come. We're not quite there yet, okay? So let's talk about target ES 2020. It specifies the script version that the compiled JavaScript code will target. So in this case, the output will be compatible with ES2020. And it matters because it determines which JavaScript features are allowed in our code. For instance, if we use target E6, it would compile in a way compatible with E6. So every product, every piece of tech is moving and improving. So this is a way of dialing in to a good modern compiler. Okay, so now we're going to set up our module, another colon, and this is going to be common JS. Okay, another comma, more to come yet. Okay, and so right here we just set up the module system to be used by Node.js. It determines things like how things are imported and exported, and just how certain statements are read. No reason to overthink it at this point. We'll just keep continuing here. We're going to set up a strict. Okay, and that really is a Boolean, a true-false Boolean that's going to be true. Okay, so let's talk about that. What that's setting up is strict type checking in TypeScript. So again, we'll have these .ts files. And when it comes to things like null checks, strict function types, and more, it ensures that our code is type safe. And honestly, we want it to catch any possible error. Okay, so we're really just dialing things in here. So we have our comma, because more is to come. Now we're going to set up our ES module interoperability, or interop. Whoop, got those quotes there, ES. Once again, this is a Boolean that's going to be true. In other words, yes, we do want our ES module to be interop or interoperable. Okay, let's talk about what that is. It allows us to import common JS modules from Node.js as if they were ES modules. If you don't understand that, don't worry about it too much. It makes it easier to work in a common JS environment with TypeScript, especially when using libraries that weren't at first designed with ES modules in mind. Okay, so it just gives us something that we need. Now we're going to set up our resolve JSON module. And for a third time, this is a Boolean, a true-false statement. Okay. The resolve JSON module being true means, yes, we have the JSON module. It allows us to import JSON files directly in our TypeScript code. And that's just special because it's useful when we need to load configuration files or other JSON data in our project. Now let's set up our out directory. Out dir. Oops, colon. Not dust, dist. Oop, come on now. Okay. So catch up with me there, all right? This is specifying our output directory for the compiled JavaScript files. So they'll be placed in a folder called dist, and it matters because it keeps, compiled files separate from source.ts files. So it makes it easier to manage our project. Okay, now we're going to set up our types. So again, we're still in our ts.config. We're configuring our compiler. How are we going to deal with all this material that we're going to be throwing at this compiler? Okay. So I've written in Node and Mocha, and no more commas there because we're not going on. But we will put a comma next to this curly brace because one more thing's coming, okay? But let's talk real quick about what we set up there. This specifies our type definitions that should be included in our project. So types for Node and Mocha, which is our testing framework. It matters because it ensures that TypeScript knows about the types for these libraries. So we get the proper type checking and auto completion when using them, okay? So we need to include some things. And what we set up when we use those straight brackets is an array, okay? So we're setting up, hey, we have an array of things that are going to be included. We're going to have some scripts. That's how we actually get stuff done. We want to have a safe and secure product, so we're going to have some tests, all right? And then finally, we're going to have our hardhat.config.ts. Okay, so where we just set up our compiler, we need to then hook that all up. How is it going to work in the hardhat environment, or that Truman Show idea of like the fake world, the fake Ethereum world where we're going to build this, okay? And then on all code, I like to put a space at the bottom. It's just good etiquette. And we'll make sure to save, okay? And wonderful, congratulations, you just created your ts.config. And so as one more review, we have our output JavaScript compatible with ES 2020, our module of CommonJS using CommonJS, the Node.js standard, basically saying, hey, this is a normal project. We want strict type checking, and then our interoperability, allowing importing of CommonJS modules as ES modules, okay? And then allowing the importation of JSON files is what we get from that resolve JSON module, okay? And then we are outputting compiled files to the dist directory, and that keeps it safe or separate from our resident.ts files. And then we have our types, which include the definitions for Node.js and our testing platform Mocha. And then finally, I think we talked enough about how we're including these. It's saying, hey, keep an eye out for these additional types of files, okay? Okay, terrific. So now we're going to set up that very hardhat.config.ts, okay? And actually, before we do that, it's helping me realize we need to come and put our file slots here for our scripts and tests as well. So let's go on over to this terminal again. I'm going to clear it. And let's set up 3 directories within our DePIN model. So notice here, I'm in my DePIN model project. So if you're just seeing this, you want to cd into your project, okay? So then I'm just clearing that for clarity for this moment. Okay, and we want to make directories, so mkdir, and a -p is going to allow us to set up contracts, test, and scripts, okay? And look what happens here. If I come to my project now, I've got these 3 folders. Of course, there's nothing in there yet, but isn't that neat? It sets them right up, okay? You can use that in other projects on your computer and know about that for setting up files. Okay, so now we are going to come and let's set up our hardhat. We're going to touch hardhat.config.ts, okay? Make sure it's a .ts extension. And then we come right to it. We're going to code this out and talk about it. Okay, here we go. So at the very top of our hardhat config.ts, we're going to need to import some good stuff here. We got to import what? Well, we'll put it in these curly braces. I like to put a space in between. We need the hardhat user configuration or config. Okay. And we get that from somewhere, right? And we can get it from hardhat.config, okay? Finish with a semicolon. That's our first import, okay? Our second import, put it in quotation marks. It's coming from Nomic Foundation And particularly, we want the hardhat toolbox, okay? This is going to allow us, once again, to operate with, honestly, millions of dollars, millions of tokens, try stuff out, move it here, move it there, all without dealing with real money. And it's a great way to develop and test in a consistent environment, okay? So let's talk about these. That first import imports our user config type from the hardhat library. It defines the structure of our hardhat configuration, okay? And it matters because it just ensures that, again, it has to do with that type checking, that all eyeballs are looking at the code the same way, okay? The second import brings in the toolbox, which is a set of plugins, and it allows us, basically, hardhat ethers gives us Ethereum virtual machine. We've got network helpers and chai matchers that can be used in testing. So they're just very helpful and important imports, okay? All right, so then we need to set up our config. So we're going to set up const config hardhat user config, okay? An equal sign, and then some curly braces and a space. Okay, and particularly at the base of it is solidity, right? Another set of curly braces. And we need to define a version. 0.8.24. So just like everything out there, hardhat's always improving. And so we're just setting up a version with a recent version that works well with this simulator. And then we outline some settings, okay? So catch up with me there. I'll just pause for just a second. And actually, I'm going to bring this curly brace back and do it more like this with the space, okay? Because we're going to set up our optimizer. And that is where I'll do a space, okay? Enabled true. Okay. Sorry for the sloppiness there. All right, so that I'm going to stick with that, okay? Catch up with me there. Let's talk a little bit about what we did. We won't go into every little thing here, but we're highlighting our Solidity version, and I think we've talked enough about that. Everything's in motion, and we want to connect with a recent version of the wonderful stuff Hardhat or Solidity offers, okay? And this run, the optimizer enables our optimizer. It specifies the number of the times that the optimizer should run. And so it has to do with compilation time. We're just basically setting up some very key stuff, okay? One thing that if we went to production, this could have a big impact on gas cost, okay? Because we're kind of outlining roughly, you know, how much time are we going to spend running all this stuff, okay? And then finally, let's get back to finishing this because we're going to add Mocha. Let's put a comma here at that curly brace, okay? And we're setting a timeout of 40,000, and then I want to put a semicolon there to finish, okay? All right, so catch up with me while I just explain some of this. So it configures Mocha, which is our testing framework, and the framework used within Hardhat. A timeout of 40,000, well, that's 40 seconds. It's 40,000 milliseconds. So it matters because it ensures that our tests have enough time to run before it kicks back some kind of a flaw, because blockchain takes time. Otherwise, we might have a test kicking back that it failed when it really just didn't wait long enough for the for the transaction to take place. And on Hardhat, it's quite fast. On the real blockchain, things take a minute, okay? Now, none of this would be worth a thing if we don't export it, okay? So we need to finish by exporting, or export default config. And you see up there, well, what in the world is that? Well, that's that thing we just defined. That's that thing we just defined. Config is all this stuff, okay? And then export that, okay? Using the benefits of the imports that we have. And so congratulations, we've just written our hardhat config, and it's looking great.